One golfer already had the trophy in his hands, and then had to give it back because someone called a rules violation, while people outside of the ropes ruining players' rounds. These are 30 golf players who got disqualified because they got caught. Sometimes the difference between a paycheck and going home empty-handed comes down to something you kicked without even thinking about it. Azinger hit his ball into a water hazard on the 18th hole during the first round at Doral, standing in shallow water trying to figure out his next move. While getting comfortable in his stance, he kicked some coral out of the way, just clearing space for his feet. No big deal. In his mind, he played the shot, finished his round, and signed his scorecard showing a 69. Then came Friday. A television viewer in Colorado called the PGA Tour after watching Thursday's broadcast. Tour officials reviewed the tape, and there it was. Moving loose impediments in a hazard, a two-stroke penalty under Rule 13-4. And to remember, Azinger had already signed for a 69 instead of 71. Incorrect scorecard means automatic disqualification. He would have been just one shot off the lead going into the weekend. Instead, he was packing his bags while people at a bar in the Florida Keys shouted, "Watch out for those pebbles," as he tried to decompress by fishing. Which brings us to the next one at Royal Portrush, 2025. Shane Lowry is back where he conquered the world 6 years earlier, lifting that claret jug on home soil. But then comes the 12th hole. Lowry's in the rough after his tee shot. Nothing unusual there. He's lining up his second shot, takes a practice swing like he's done thousands of times before. The ball sits there in the thick grass. He addresses it, makes his shot, walks on. It should be that simple, but it wasn't. Because while Shane Lowry had no idea what just happened, someone else did. Actually, thousands of people did. The TV cameras had zoomed in tight on his ball during that practice swing, and what they captured would turn his entire round upside down. It wasn't until 3 holes later that a rules official approached him with the news. There was a possibility the ball moved on the 12th. The R&A determined that Lowry's practice swing had caused his ball to move, something so subtle that even Lowry himself, staring directly at the ball, never saw it happen. But slow-motion TV footage told a different story. A 2-shot swing that took him from contention to the cut line, all because TV viewers spotted something the player himself never saw. Up next, on the golf course, anything can happen. Weather delays, a quick mark of your ball, a stroll off the green. Simple, right? But what if you come back and your ball has vanished? For Colin Montgomerie in 2005, that question turned into a scandal that would haunt him for years. The Indonesian Open, second round. Montgomerie's sitting in a greenside bunker when the horn sounds, tropical storm rolling in. Everyone off the course. He leaves his ball unmarked in the sand, heads to the clubhouse and waits it out. When play resumes and he returns to that bunker, the ball's nowhere to be found. So he does what the rules allow, replaces it where he believes it was. Except the TV cameras told a different story. The footage showed Montgomerie placing his ball in a spot that looked suspiciously better than where it had been sitting before the delay. At the time, no penalty. Montgomerie finished the tournament, collected his 24,000-pound check, and that should have been the end of it. But then something curious happened. He donated the entire purse to charity. Noble gesture or admission of guilt? The golf world started asking questions. The real explosion came 4 years later when Sandy Lyle, fresh off losing the 2010 Ryder Cup captaincy to Montgomerie, decided to settle some scores. He went public, calling the Jakarta incident a form of cheating. Montgomerie was never formally punished, but Jakartagate stuck to him like mud on a golf shoe. Next up, they say moms notice everything, so never underestimate a mother watching golf on television, especially when she's 4,000 miles away. First round at TPC Sawgrass. 15th green, Victor Hovland moves his marker 1 putter head left to clear Justin Thomas's line. Thomas putts. Now Hovland needs to move his marker back. Except there's a problem. Instead of moving it back to the right, he moves it another putter head left. Nobody notices until Hovland's walking to his car when his phone rings. It's his mom calling from Norway. She's been watching on TV. She asks if he's going to be penalized for what happened on 15. Victor has no idea what she's talking about. He hangs up and immediately calls tour officials. They review the footage. And yep, mom's right. 2-stroke penalty under Rule 14.7 for playing from the wrong place. His 70 becomes a 72. Funny thing is that he shoots 74 Friday and misses the cut by 2 shots. Exactly the 2 strokes mom cost him. Or saved him from worse, depending on how you look at it. Mothers, am I right? Next up, coming off the 54-hole lead with a 2-shot cushion, chasing his first European Tour title. That's where Peter Whiteford stood heading into Sunday at the Avantha Masters in India. Except he never got to tee off with that lead because of what happened on Saturday's 18th hole. Whiteford's ball was sitting in the rough on the 18th. He sets up for his approach shot, and just before he swings, something happens. The ball shifts. Barely, maybe a millimeter, maybe a fraction more. Whiteford immediately asked everyone around him if they saw it move. They all say no. So he plays the shot, finishes his round, signs his card. Everything seems fine. Then the overnight emails start rolling in. The rules committee reviews the footage. And yes, the ball did move, and Whiteford should have taken a 1-stroke penalty and replaced it. Just like that, his 2-shot lead and his shot at a first European Tour title evaporate. The worst part? He'd done exactly what you're supposed to do. Asked everyone present if they saw the movement, and they said no. But in the age of HD television and frame-by-frame analysis, the naked eye isn't always good enough. All right, we move on. Oh, welcome to the wonderful world of reasonable judgment. Golf's newest way of saying, yeah, it's not perfect, but come on. Final round at Port Stewart, Jon Rahm's destroying the field. 6th green, his ball rolls to within 2 feet, but it's sitting right in playing partner Daniel Im's line. Standard golf etiquette says, is time to move your marker. Rahm marks his ball to the side at about 10 o'clock, then moves the marker 1 putter head away so it's completely out of Im's way. Im putts. Now Rahm needs to put everything back. Here's where the controversy starts. When video showed him replacing the ball, it looked like he put it in front of the marker instead of back to the side where it came from. 4 TV viewers fire off emails to the European Tour. Officials were already looking at it. On the 13th tee, chief referee Andy McPhee pulls Rahm aside. But wait, this isn't April 2017 anymore. Remember Lexi Thompson getting hammered with a 4-shot penalty for something similar? That fiasco led to a new rule. Players should not be held to the degree of precision that can sometimes be provided by video technology. If an official determines the player did all that can be reasonably expected to follow the rules, their judgment stands, even if video shows otherwise. At the end of it, he concluded no penalty for Rahm. He ended up winning by 6 shots. But Golf World wasn't exactly happy with that. Even Rahm said, "It just kills me that my win will have this little mark on it." Next up, back in 2017, Lexi Thompson was cruising at the ANA Inspiration, one of the biggest weeks in women's golf. She's in contention, calm, focused, the kind of rhythm that makes the leaderboard start whispering Sunday. Then comes the 17th hole in the 3rd round. Lexi hits her approach, marks her ball, lifts it, and, well, this is where it gets messy. When she replaces the ball, it isn't exactly on the original spot. A millimeter, maybe 2. Totally unnoticeable to anyone standing nearby. Except it was noticeable to a viewer at home. Someone watching on TV spots the tiny misplacement and emails the LPGA. Officials dig in, and after reviewing the footage, they determine a violation of Rule 14-2D, misplacing the ball, which carries a 4-stroke penalty in stroke play. 4 strokes, just like that. Lexi is shocked. She's already signed her scorecard thinking the round was clean. The penalty drops her out of contention, and the crowd watches in stunned silence as a weekend of flawless golf suddenly looks very different on paper. Of all the cases we've discussed, this one pops up most when talking e-play, fairness, and how much the viewer at home can sway a tournament. And for Lexi, it was a harsh reminder that in pro golf, nothing, literally nothing, goes unnoticed. Next up, we touched on this one briefly, so here it goes. Back in 2013, good year for TV viewers apparently, Tiger shared the lead at Augusta in the 2nd round. On the par 5-15, he lays up to 85 yards, perfect wedge distance. Pin in sight, shot flies a couple yards too far, hits the flagstick, and caroms straight into the pond. Brutal. Now he has options: drop in the drop zone, go back on a line from where the ball entered the water, or replay from near the original spot. He chooses the last, drops, plays, makes bogey, and walks off thinking all's fine. Except David Eager is watching from Florida, and he's not just any viewer, but a veteran U.S. tournament official. Replaying the footage, he spots a divot hole Tiger's ball rested in that wasn't there on the first shot. Eager hesitates, knowing a call will be controversial, but tries to save Tiger from disqualification. Officials review, think it's fine, and Tiger signs his card. Done deal. Then comes the interview where Tiger casually mentions he dropped the ball 2 yards further back to avoid the pin. Uh-oh. Saturday morning chaos. Officials assess a 2-stroke penalty. His 71 becomes a 73. Bogey 6 turns into a triple bogey 8. All because a wedge hit a flagstick, and Tiger got a little too honest on camera. Coming in next. Has it ever happened that your brain just does something without asking permission first? Well, that's what Simon Dyson would like you to believe anyway. Second round in Shanghai, Dyson's playing solid golf. He's shot back-to-back 70s and finds himself tied for second place, positioned perfectly heading into the weekend. Then comes the 8th green. Dyson's close to the hole for par. He marks his ball, picks it up, and uses the ball to tap down something directly on his putting line. Except here's the problem, that something was a spike mark. And Rule 16-1, it says you absolutely cannot touch your line of putt. Any junior golfer with decent rules knowledge knows this is a violation. Knocking down stuff that might mess with your ball rolling into the hole? Come on. Several TV viewers saw it happen and immediately started firing off emails and tweets to European Tour officials. The next morning, Dyson's getting ready to tee off in one of the final groups when officials tell him he's disqualified. But wait, there's more. The European Tour wasn't done with him. Disciplinary panel time. 30,000 pounds fine plus a 2-month ban. Up next, there's a fine line between carefully assessing your situation and inadvertently improving your lie. At Merion, someone watching at home thought Steve Stricker crossed it. First round, 3rd hole. The short par 3 that's anything but easy. Stricker's tee shot finds the edge of a bunker in the trees, short and left of the green. The rules official on site determines it's not actually in the bunker, but there's a tree blocking his swing. Stricker declares the ball unplayable and takes a 1-stroke penalty. With the green elevated above him, Stricker walks up the hill several times to see the flag and figure out his drop. He's trying to get the line right, making sure he can see the wicker basket that marks the hole at Merion. Back and forth through the thick grass. Somewhere a TV viewer sees this and puts 2 and 2 together, or thinks they do. He says that Stricker trampled the grass where he was about to drop the ball, improving his lie. In the wake of Tiger Woods' controversial drop at the Masters 2 months earlier, the USGA isn't taking any chances. But after reviewing the situation, officials determined that there's no violation. The double bogey stood on its own merits. No help from the rules needed. Next up, what if we keep rolling with fresh, great moments? Because now we have Sergio Garcia at Quail Hollow. Second round, 17th green. Garcia marks his ball to the side of Bill Haas's putting line, then moves it back after Haas putts. Standard protocol happens dozens of times every round. But somewhere, someone's watching on TV, and they're convinced Garcia didn't put the ball back in the exact same spot. So they call Quail Hollow. Now Garcia's got to have a conversation with rules officials about whether he properly replaced his golf ball. Garcia admitted it looked like the ball might have moved a tiny bit, but explained that putting it back in exactly the same spot is difficult. Not just for him, but for everyone. Kinda makes sense. Garcia told officials he'd rather take a 2-stroke penalty if there was any hint of wrongdoing than have anyone think he was cheating. He explained that's how his father raised him in the game. The game is bigger than anybody else. So, officials reviewed the whole thing and determined that Garcia didn't gain any advantage from the ball's position. No penalty. His 68 stood. He finished the round tied for 13th, 5 shots back of Phil Mickelson. See, you don't always have to listen to the unofficial referees watching from home. Now we're in Wentworth, 18th hole opening round. McDowell's drive leaks right into the bushes. Not ideal, but manageable. He walks up to assess the situation. Ball sitting on a bed of branches in the undergrowth. He's standing maybe 6 feet away, and suddenly the whole area feels like it's bouncing. The ball shifts. Just barely, it rotates maybe a couple of dimples. But then McDowell does something smart. He asks for the TV team to check the replay. He wants confirmation of what just happened. But while he's waiting for an answer, a viewer watching at home has already called Sky Sports to report the infraction. The footage gets reviewed and the ruling comes back. McDowell caused the ball to move, even if only by a fraction. So that's a 1-stroke penalty. But there's a second problem. He didn't replace the ball in its original position before chipping out. That's another stroke. What should have been a 6 turned into a triple bogey 8. His round? 2 over 74. Westwood and Els, playing in the same group, were left completely dumbfounded by the whole thing. Next up. All right, let me ask you something. Do you know how many attempts it took Ernie Els to escape a greenside bunker on the par 5 6th hole at Castle Stewart? 4 swings from 10 feet off the green. Brutal, embarrassing. The kind of thing that happens in nightmares. Els eventually walked off with a double bogey 7 on the hole during Thursday's opening round. Bad enough, right? But then came the tap on the shoulder after he'd signed his card. Senior referee Andy McPhee pulled Els aside and informed him that a TV viewer had called in, claiming Els had grounded his club in the sand during one of those 4 attempts. If true, that's a penalty. Each time. Which could have turned his 7 into a 9, or worse depending on which swings were violations. That would have been a world record. 10 feet from the green and 2 on a par 5, walking off with a 9. The officials reviewed the footage frame by frame. After examination, they ruled Els hadn't grounded his club. No penalty. He came dangerously close to making his embarrassing bunker struggle exponentially worse. All because someone sitting at home with a remote decided to play detective, counting down to the next one. When you're playing the 7th hole and you're 1 shot off the lead, the last thing on your mind is whether your golf ball might have shifted forward by the width of a dimple and a half. But this is Padraig Harrington we're talking about. And, you know, Paddy, one of golf's true gentlemen, the guy literally working as an R&A ambassador for the rules of golf at this very tournament. First round, 7th green in Abu Dhabi. Harrington marks his ball, replaces it, and as he removes his coin, his finger catches the back of the ball. He looks down. The ball's there. The Titleist logo is still pointing at his target line. Everything looks fine. He holds the putt, marks down a 3, signs his card for a 7 under 65. 1 back of the lead. Solid day. Then an email arrives at European Tour headquarters. A viewer sitting on their couch with an HD TV becomes the world's most dedicated rules official. The verdict? The ball moved 3 dimples forward, came back maybe a dimple and a half. Under Rule 20-3A, when the ball moves during replacement, it must be put back exactly, otherwise 2-stroke penalty. And you already know how it goes. Of course, Harrington didn't include those strokes. Disqualification for signing an incorrect scorecard. Here we are with the next in line. Golf can be a game of inches or a game of waiting, especially when you're standing on a tee for half an hour, muscles cooling, mind wandering toward the leaderboard. That's exactly where Julie Inkster found herself at the 2010 Safeway Classic. 50 years old, Hall of Famer, and riding a 67 that put her at 8 under, just 3 shots behind Ai Miyazato. Sunday winning was whispering in her ear. Then came the 10th hole. The group hit a wall, a 30-minute wait on the tee. Half an hour of standing around, muscles cooling down, rhythm disappearing. Inkster grabbed her 9-iron, attached a weighted donut training device to the club, and took some practice swings to stay loose. A viewer watching the television broadcast noticed the device and contacted tournament officials. By the time Inkster reached the 17th hole, officials had determined she'd violated Rule 14-3, using an artificial training device during a competitive round. She finished her round not knowing her tournament was already over. This incident eventually helped change the rules. Starting in 2016, this violation became a 2-shot penalty instead of automatic disqualification. But in 2010, 1 email from a viewer, and a Hall of Famers weekend was finished. Next up, Miguel Angel Martin was a European Tour grinder. Started as a caddy, turned pro in 1981, and by 2005 had made 500 appearances on tour, the first continental European to hit that milestone. The guy knew every rule, every situation, every way to save a stroke when things got messy. So when he teed it up at the 2005 British Masters at Forest of Arden, nobody expected what came next. Playing his final hole of the opening round, the 9th on the Arden course, Martin found himself dealing with a small sapling that was right in the way of his swing. The solution seemed obvious. Step on it, flatten it down, take the shot. Simple problem solved. Nobody watching in person saw anything wrong with it. Martin finished his round, signed his card, and that was that. Except it wasn't. A television viewer spotted him standing on that sapling to improve his backswing and called it in. Standing on the sapling violated Rule 13-2, improving your stance. 2-stroke penalty. The chief referee determined Martin could have taken his stance another way without turning that sapling into a doormat. That's a disqualification no matter who you are or how many hundreds of tournaments you've played. Which brings us back to this one. Tom Watson in 1980 was practically untouchable. Leading money winner 4 years running, winning 6 tournaments in America, just won his 3rd Open Championship. He's the best player on the planet, and he knows it. So when he's paired with Lee Trevino during the final round at La Costa and sees Super Mex struggling a bit, Watson does what any helpful playing partner might do in a casual round. He offers a tip. TV microphones picked up Watson telling Trevino to adjust his stance. Natural conversation between two legends, right? Except that's textbook Rule 8-1, giving advice to a fellow competitor. And in a tournament, even if you're trying to help your buddy, that's illegal. Someone watching from their living room caught it, picked up the phone, and called tournament officials. The officials reviewed the footage, confirmed the violation, and approached Watson about it after the round. To his credit, Watson didn't deny it or make excuses. He admitted what happened. 2-stroke penalty assessed on the spot. The morale? In professional golf, keep your swing tips to yourself. Coming in next, your arm angle when dropping a golf ball shouldn't be the difference between contention and obscurity. But in 2012, that's exactly what it became. Yoo Sun Young came to the 14th hole 1 shot off the lead in Friday's second round. Her drive found a bushy overgrowth, and when she tried to muscle it out with a 5-iron, she only knocked it deeper into trouble. Unplayable lie. Take the penalty, drop, move on. But when she took the drop, her arm wasn't extended at 90 degrees. She dropped it from closer to the ground. Back then, the rule required shoulder height. She didn't give it a second thought, finished the hole, kept playing. Meanwhile, multiple viewers watching the Golf Channel broadcast saw the replay and started tweeting tournament officials. After her round, as she was signing her scorecard, officials approached her about the violation. One more penalty stroke added to that hole. What she thought was a bad double became a triple bogey 8. The kicker? Yoo had been one of 3 co-leaders after the opening round. One instinctive drop, arm a few degrees too low, caught by someone with a Twitter account and a pause button. That's all it took to derail a momentum at the season-ending championship. Up next, you know how Craig Stadler earned the nickname The Walrus, right? Built like a tank, plays golf like he's in a bar fight with the course, and absolutely does not care about looking pretty doing it. But in 1987 at Torrey Pines, the one time he did care about his appearance, it cost him everything. Third round, 14th hole, Stadler's tied for the lead when his tee shot decides to nestle under a Torrey Pine with branches so low, he'd need to be a contortionist to swing normally. So he gets down on his knees to chip it out, but the ground's soaked from overnight rain. Stadler doesn't want to get his pants dirty, so he grabs a towel and lays it down to protect them. Makes the shot. Moves on. Nobody says a word, but someone watching from home picks up the phone and calls tournament officials. The violation? Rule 13-3, building a stance. Using that towel to keep his trousers clean technically gave him an artificial advantage in positioning himself. Meanwhile, Stadler finishes the final round, birdies the 72nd hole, ties for second place, 4 shots behind George Burns. He's walking off the green when officials break the news. 2-stroke penalty from Saturday means he signed an incorrect scorecard. Disqualified. All because you didn't want muddy pants? That's golf's rulebook in all its ridiculous glory. Next up, sometimes the difference between second place and the #1 ranking in the world comes down to what your caddy does with his feet in a bunker. Stacey Lewis was about to find that out the hard way. Third round, 16th hole at Desert Ridge in Phoenix. Lewis's ball finds a fairway bunker, and she walks in first to assess the situation, asking her caddy Travis Wilson about the shot. Standard stuff. Every player does this. Wilson follows her into the sand. As he steps in, he does something with his foot, moving it around, getting a feel for the surface. So, what's the problem? Well, that Rule 13-4 says testing the surface of a hazard is a violation. And somewhere in Florida, a caddy who'd been playing poker and drinking beers with a buddy spots it immediately on TV and calls it in. 2-stroke penalty. Now she's 4 shots back of Imi Azato heading into Sunday. Wilson, named Caddy of the Year just 2 weeks earlier, felt terrible. He told Lewis he never intended to test the sand, but that didn't change the ruling. Lewis kept telling him it was fine, that weird things happen in golf. But you know Stacey, she's got a metal rod and 5 screws in her back from scoliosis surgery. A 2-stroke penalty? Manageable. On Sunday, she went out and fired a 64. Made up 7 strokes on Miyazato and won by 3. Became the #1 player in the world. And yeah, after she won, she thanked the anonymous viewer who called in the penalty, saying it inspired her to play better. Next up, and this one is a very unlucky moment, let's call it that. So, we're in Kapalua, 15th hole opening round. Camilo Villegas is chipping up that ridiculous slope toward the green. First chip rolls back to his feet. Second chip does the exact same thing. Frustrating? Absolutely, but here's where things go sideways. As the ball is still rolling back down toward him, Villegas casually flicks his club to swat away some loose grass in its path. Just tidying up, right? Just a reflex. Except Rule 23-1 states that when a ball is in motion, you can't remove loose impediments that might influence the ball. Villegas didn't realize he'd done anything wrong. He posted a 1 under 72 and signed his card. Turns out a guy in Daytona Beach watching with friends saw the swat, looked up the rule on the USGA website, and started tweeting at the PGA Tour and Golf Channel. By the time officials reviewed the footage and tracked down Villegas, it was too late. DQ for him too. Want to make it worse? Well, he was celebrating his 29th birthday that Friday. Happy birthday, Camilo. You're going home. Coming in next. At this point in the 2013 US Open, the USGA probably had a dedicated phone line just for TV viewers reporting infractions. Because here we go again. Fresh off his Masters win a couple months earlier, Adam Scott's playing his first round at Marion. Fifth hole, left side of the fairway, his ball finds a spot just above a small stream. Hazard territory. He sets up for his shot. And apparently half a dozen people at home think they've just witnessed a crime. Multiple viewers, as many as 6, contact the USGA claiming Scott grounded his club in the hazard. You know, the thing you absolutely cannot do in a hazard. Yes. 6 different people sitting at home thought they'd caught the reigning Masters champion, red-handed breaking one of golf's most basic rules. USGA officials review the footage after the round. They concluded that there's no violation. Scott didn't ground his club. Not even close. It makes you wonder, how many hours of collective human life were spent that week analyzing slow-motion footage of golf swings from living room couches? Next chapter, and you won't see this coming. TV viewers are the worst nightmare of cheating players, because nothing is worse than getting caught because some eagle-eyed TV viewer in Canada had nothing better to do on a Friday afternoon than call in and report you. And yes, that happened to Chella Choi at the 2014 Canadian Pacific Women's Open, actually. So Choi was playing the 10th hole during her second round when she marked her ball on the green, placed the marker down so her ball was sitting on the right side of it. Standard procedure. She picked up her ball, cleaned it, and then replaced it. Except when she put it back down, the ball was now on the left side of the marker. Not by some microscopic amount either, an inch or so. Enough to improve her position, which is a textbook violation of Rule 16-1B. A television viewer watching the extended Canadian broadcast noticed it, called it in, and the LPGA officials went to work. 2-stroke penalty. That penalty would drop her below the cut line by exactly 1 shot. Choi refused to accept it. Even with all the evidence, she disagreed, wouldn't sign her scorecard, and packed up and left. To this day, no one knows exactly what her reasoning was. All we know is that a TV viewer with too much time and a telephone ended Choi's tournament faster than any bogey ever could.